Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Today we conclude The Psychic Being, Part 10. From the Mother. Question. Suppose a man endeavors in this life to become very intelligent, but if in the next life he is born an idiot, what is the use of all these efforts? Mother. No, I spoke a little briefly, but it is not that. His psychic being is not stupid. Granting, for example, that the psychic being has had the experience of a man who was a writer, and could translate his experience through books and speeches. Thus he covered a particular field of experience due to the associations and circumstances in which this being lived. But there is a field of experience he misses. For example, he says, I have lived with my brain, with the reactions to an intellectual, to life. Now I want to live with my feeling. For usually this overactivity of the intellect in ordinary life diminishes very much the capacity of feeling. Therefore, in order to have another field of experience, of development, he renounces his intellectual height. He is no longer a genius, a writer of genius. He becomes an ordinary man, but with a remarkable heart, very kind, very generous. I said idiot, but it is a question of comparison. It is not rare, for example, that a psychic being which has reached its maximum growth, after having enjoyed the experiences of a ruling authority, of all that the life of an emperor or king may bring, may want to be able to work in an obscure life, without being fettered all the time by governmental pomps, and may very well choose to be born in quite an ordinary environment, an ordinary bourgeois family, in the most mediocre conditions, so as to have that kind of incognito which will allow it to work without being hampered by all the necessities of governmental display that are binding on one who is at the head of a country. So if you look at the thing from one point of view, you say, how is it? What is this downfall? It is not a downfall. It is meeting the problem from another angle, from another point of view. For the consciousness, I mean the true consciousness, the divine consciousness, success or failure are the same. Glory or mediocrity are the same. What is important is the growth of the consciousness. And certain conditions that appear very favorable to human beings can be very unfavorable for the growth of the consciousness. You may look at yourself. Naturally, if you are careful to be always at the height of your being, you do not fall into this error. But with ordinary thought, with ordinary reaction, you judge everything by success or failure. But that is the last way of judging, for it is the most artificial, the most external, that which is the very contrary of truth. In human life, as it is at present organized, not once in a million can one find the true value in the forefront recognized. Usually a little cabotinage is always necessary. When a man gets success, great success, whatever it is, in whatever domain it may be, you can be sure that somewhere there is some cabotinage. Question: what does cabotinage mean? Mother: this is said of actors who show off in a comedy. But the word is used also in speaking of someone who overestimates his value, who shows more than he has, displays more than he really has, and who thinks above all of getting appreciated. That is the most important thing for him, to be appreciated. It is always the vital being which protests and complains. The psychic being works with perseverance and ardor to make the union an accomplished fact, but it never complains and knows how to wait for the hour of realizations to come. Question: Mother, the inherent tendency of the material body is to dissolve, and the mind helps it. How will you be able to stop the natural propensity of my body to disintegration? Mother: it must become aware of the immortality of the elements constituting it, which is a scientifically recognized fact. Then it must submit itself to the influence and the will of the psychic being, which is immortal in its very nature. Question: does the psychic being always progress? Mother: there are in the psychic being two very different kinds of progress. One consisting in its formation, building, and organization. For the psychic starts by being only a kind of tiny divine spark within the being, and out of this spark will emerge progressively an independent, conscious being, having its own action and will. The psychic being, at its origin, is only a spark of the divine consciousness, and it is through successive lives that it builds up a conscious individuality. It is a progress similar to that of a growing child. It is a thing in the making. For a long time, in most human beings, the psychic is a being in the making. It is not a fully individualized, fully conscious being and master of itself, and it needs all its rebirths, one after another, in order to build itself and become fully conscious. The psychic, the soul, the psychic essence, the psychic being. Psychic being, the evolving soul of the individual, the divine portion in him which evolves from life to life, growing by its experiences until it becomes a fully conscious being. From its place behind the heart center, the psychic being supports the mind, life, and body, aiding their growth and development. The term soul is often used as a synonym for the psychic being, but strictly speaking, there is a distinction. The soul is the psychic essence. The psychic being is the soul personality put forward and developed by the psychic essence to represent it in the evolution. Psychic essence, the soul in its essence, the divine element in the individual which supports the evolution of his being in nature. In the course of the evolution, the psychic essence grows and takes form as the psychic being. Psychicization, the psychic change in which the psychic being comes forward to dominate the mind, vital and physical, and change the lower nature. Though we have compiled a series of 10 parts on the psychic being, there is still so much more from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Please read Sri Aurobindo's letters on yoga and the Mother's replies to disciples in her questions and answers and in the agenda for more enlightenment on the psychic being. Namaste.